Hi, folks. Welcome to Tuesday's edition of the I Write videocast stroke podcast. I've got Stuart Lockhead with me today and Jimmy Hutton. I'm Norrie Stewart. Today, we're going to kick off with a piece in The Guardian about the Tories nurturing and looking after our health service. We're then going to move on to the foreign press and their reporting of the British government's handling of the coronavirus. And finally, just because Jimmy's head's going to explode if we don't, we're going to have a look at the ONS figures for deaths in England with the coronavirus. Not really a cheerful run-up, guys.
But we'll get a couple of giggles at it.
I think, well, I'll kick off with the foreign press. The National in Scotland has been reporting, the foreign press's reporting of the government's handling, the UK government's handling, this is, of the coronavirus. There was a piece in one of the Australian broadsheets yesterday. There's a piece on the front, I believe, of the New York Times International Edition, also leveling quite a lot of criticism at the UK government. Stuart, what did you think? What's your...
I actually saw they published a picture of the front page of the New York Times. The New York Times article wasn't so much a savaging, it was you might call it forensic, like the Keir Starmer style, rather than stick the knife straight in your heart. Journalists around the world have been vocal in their attacks on Westminster's handling of the pandemic. I forget the woman's name, sorry. Mr. Johnson's cabinet is so markedly weak, with so few politicians of intellect and experience, that the Prime Minister's absence for nearly a month left an alarming void. So, you know, she actually seems to like Boris Johnson for some strange reason or other. But she sums up that the path to the top has been based on a simple strategy. She's talking about the quality of the cabinet. Boris is not a knowledgeable, able, policy-driven leader. He's an optimist figurehead who prefers an easy life. Doesn't he have to? His holidays.
Her name's Jenny Russell.
All right.
And effectively what she said is they're a bunch of incompetents.
I like the way you put that. I could have said that at the start, but I thought I'd give you a few quotes.
Well, I think she's effectively saying it's a cabinet full of puff pieces they're really just PR men, if you like, the purest of pure politicians.
But to make him look good.
It's a bit much. Yeah. It's a bit much when you long for the days of people like Philip Hammond and Sajid bloody Javid.
Well, see,
it's true.
But that surprises me. When did Sajid Javid become somebody who was a politician with gravitas?
Well,
he just was, having gotten quite far up the slippery, shitey pole that is the Tory party. He just wasn't willing to be told what to do by someone like Dominic Cummings. He wasn't going to be a chancellor, sit in number 11 Downing Street and be instructed and ordered by Dominic Cummings, who is elected by no one, is elected for no one, and is really only interested in looking, well, judging by some of the contracts that have been handed to him and his pals, he's only interested in filling the boots and the purses of those close to him.
Well, it was interesting that the people she mentioned, though. I mean, Jeremy Hunt, who presided over the lack of preparation for a pandemic. Hammond, who presided over 10 years of austerity that essentially cut the legs off both the NHS and local government, who are, you know, a major player in the pandemic reaction. And she thinks that's better than what we've got.
Well, Norrie, what it actually points out is the paucity of public life throughout the world. The idea that because someone reaches high office, they are deserving of it. We're looking back at people like George Osborne, David Cameron, and thinking they were miles better than what we've got now, when in reality, They really weren't, because what we've got now has manoeuvred them all out of the road so that he could get his cell into the office.
Yeah, but you've got to think about an explanation for why we got into this situation. You've got to think back to people. How did Trump become president? And then you realize, well, the people behind Trump becoming president were also behind Boris Johnson becoming prime minister. And it's all about having figureheads and not a powerful person actually leading the country.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the British electorate's allowed that to happen. We've been Americanising our politics for years. It's not a meritocracy. It's how you get to the top is the only important thing. You don't get there by talent anymore.
I'm sorry. I actually think freedom of speech is to blame for this. I think it's the press that are responsible for this. I really
Well,
do.
if you define freedom of speech in an American context, that also includes, for some weird reason or other, the right to carry arms and to take over state parliaments, or whatever they're called in America, and stop politicians doing their jobs. I mean, for crying out loud.
The mind game to play with what's happening in America with these guys on the steps of their democratic institutions with guns is, imagine they were black. Just imagine that was a group of black guys with guns.
They'd all be dead.
The police, the army would be out. You know, this is proof positive that white supremacy is on the rise in America, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, I do vivid. One of my favorite movies used to be The Blues Brothers, and I don't know if you remember that. It's got many excellent parts to it, but all through the movie, the Nazi Party of the USA is lampooned. Unfortunately, they're no longer they can no longer be lampooned. They're far too dangerous.
Well, plus they've got the fundamentalist Christian right in there with them.
Come on, guys! It's a ridiculous country anyway. The reality is, the states of America have remarkable power. They get to set so much of what happens within the state, and Donald Trump is actively using idiots to try and usurp that power and take it into his office. That's what's going on, and it's not him that's doing it. It's the people behind him that are doing it.
Well, but it's also remarkably similar to what Hitler did in the 30s. Don't forget, Hitler got the power because he had all these brown shirts on the streets, beating up people all the time. It wasn't just
Hitler was operating in a nation state, mate. The states of America have just as much power as nation states. I mean,
that is the difference. I agree.
You're not going to get people in California, for example, going and having a bloody protest. If people in California protest, they'll go to the beach and there'll be a couple of hundred of them, because you couldn't get thousands to go to Pasadena and complain at the state capital, sorry. They just wouldn't do it. What you're looking at is idiot states. Places like Wisconsin, where they're that bloody poor, and they've been kept that bloody poor in the richest nation on the planet, that they're easily malleable by people like Donald Trump and those who pull Donald's levers.
Well, that actually brings us quite neatly into the next article from The Guardian, and the manipulation by the political powers of the situation, you know, with Trump manipulating the pandemic lockdown to get his supporters out in the streets with guns. We now have a report in The Guardian suggesting that the Tory party are using the pandemic as cover to introduce more privatisation into the NHS.
What a surprise.
Well, Tories is going to Tory, aren't they?
Well, exactly, mate. But they're shameless in what they're doing now. I mean, I sat and wrote down a list of these bobag companies that they're giving massive contracts to, because people should know.
Massive contracts that haven't been put out to tender.
Aye, absolutely. Well, how can you put them out to tender, mate? All the civil servants are sitting in the house. They can't do this. They can't do due diligence at the moment, can they? But Deloitte, KPMG, Serco, Sodexo, Mighty, and for some strange reason, Palantir, which is a massive data mining group from America. I wonder why Palantir have got involved. Are Palantir not Cambridge Analytica under a new name, or certainly part of it?
Only probably.
Probably. I'm glad you pointed that out. I was starting to suspect that, Jimmy.
Allegedly, aye. But again, you've got these two, and it's the two Warner brothers, and I really need to come up with some funnies around Warner brothers for these two clowns. But
well, can I just point out that they've got a British name, Clipper Logistics.
Who's this? Palantir?
Yeah, Palantir. They've got. Oh no, is that something else? Sorry. I'm confusing you here. Sorry, I'm looking at a different article.
Right. Okay. Well, it appears that basically anything that doesn't actually involve treating patients with coronavirus is now up for auction.
Up for grabs, aye.
To
and
the highest Tory donor. The biggest Tory donor.
Now, Deloitte used to be one of the 4 big accountancy firms on the planet. Now they seem to be an accountancy firm that's got a finger in absolutely every pie all over the world. Worryingly, they get fined on numerous occasions last year, multi-million-pound fines for misdemeanours. That doesn't matter. The government still takes them in. My worry with a lot of these companies is that they shroud themselves in secrecy. You try and find out who the shareholders are, where the money goes, who gets the divvy, and you'll never find it because you're going through offshore territory after offshore territory.
Yeah.
Confiscate everything. So they're being handed huge amounts of public money, then they are handing back big amounts of said public money as donations to political parties. And none of this is really traceable because we can't follow the money to make sure that you can't.
Do you remember the TTIP agreement between the European Union and America, where one of the clauses in it wanted the global corporations that had American bases to have their own courts set up where they could take various countries in the European Union to court. But it had to be done in secret. They didn't want anybody to know. They didn't want to know who was going to court, why they were going to court, and what the result of the court action was.
Well, the question I've got asked you, Norrie, I do remember reading about that at the time, but has it gone ahead in secret?
No. The TTIP was the one where the Irish MSP, Southern Irish MSP, did a video of how, not MSP, MEP, how the MEPs, the situation that they had to go through to get a look at it, this agreement. And they had to be escorted into a locked room on their own, without phones or any sort of recording equipment, and no notes. And then they were allowed to see the agreement. Now, this is your democratically elected representative. Had to memorize it if he wanted to come out and speak to anybody about it. Absolutely outrageous.
Well, corporate America, and by corporate America, I mean the world. All these big companies, they're pan-national. They hide themselves. They operate in every territory on the planet that there's profit. They find ways to buy off. I mean, it must be great if you work for one of these companies and go to Africa, because they'll have bought the government, so they can do exactly whatever they want over there. But even in the European Union, they find ways to build utter scandalous levels of racketeering into what they call business. We should really label it for what it is. Corporate America is basically the mafia on a scale much larger than the mafia could ever have thought.
Well, the mafia did try to take over Cuba, didn't it?
Well, it did take over Cuba, and that's why bloody Castro tossed them out, mate.
So, right at this minute, the Tory government is trialling this app in the Isle of Wight and asking us to trust them with our data, to trust that they won't use our data, which is only the first 3 figures of your postcode, apparently.
Aye, and every single part of your NHS record from the day you were born.
And at the same time, selling off the NHS whilst clapping for them on a Thursday. And they're looking for us to trust them with this app that's supposed to revolutionize the way they track and trace the pandemic.
And don't forget how the contract for the app was handed out, £250 million.
Well,
to a buddy of Dominic Cummings and his brother.
I was setting Jimmy up for that one.
Well, Jimmy, off you go.
Because it's one of the Warner brothers, is it not, James?
Yeah, it's one of the Warners that's behind it. Their app's a nonsense, mate. Their app's it's laughable. There's Matt Hancock, the man who's got too many letters in his name again, saying this morning that if you download that app, and I'll look right down the camera like he did, you're doing your duty.
Yes, I saw that.
Again, what, Matt? You can take your duty and stick it right between your cheeks of your farter. Stick Boris up there while you're at it, because there's no use. You're not going to get 10% of the UK public to download an app that, for some reason, GCHQ and the people that you've had build this app think that they can do better than Apple and Google. They're going to get it to operate on my phone using less power than Apple and Google.
The Icelanders have got an app that solves the problem. The information is kept on your phone.
Well, that's what they were told. That was the lie today. Was.
That's the promise. The promise in the world, mate. But I don't trust the British government to build. Mate, I wouldn't trust them to wipe the collective arse of the United Kingdom. Never mind build an app that's going to work on a smartphone without in any way absolutely ruining your smartphone. And by the way, it works on Bluetooth, which is what, 22-year-old technology or something like that, Bluetooth?
Aye. But
what about the gadget walking past with a card reader that has 45 quid out of everybody's account because they've all left their Bluetooth on because the government's insisted that they leave their Bluetooth on, and that boy's card reader just dipped 30 pockets at a bus stop or whatever.
But you're doing your duty. I'll tell you,
if your duty costs you 45 quid every time a tea leaf walks past you, we'll all be skint very quickly, won't we?
Talking about duty, Jimmy, do you remember the days from your army days when you were told, when you didn't want to salute some particular Pratt officer, but you were told you weren't saluting the man in the uniform, you were saluting the uniform?
Yes, you were saluting the rank, not the man, yes.
That's what I think our politicians in the Tory government think the position is, that you have to support them because of the position they hold, rather than support them because of how well they fill the position.
Now the problem is, come on. The problem is that there's an enormous part of the public actually see it that way. I mean, what was this morning's ridiculous thing on Sky TV? They're flying another bloody British nationalist flag. Oh my, don't get me going about celebrating World War II again. I said some foul language yesterday on social media about that. Makes me so angry. But apparently the latest thing is, do you remember when the Olympics were held in London, and if a British athlete won a gold medal, they got to paint their local postbox gold?
Yes. I've seen that.
So the latest squeeze is to paint pillar boxes blue to support the NHS. Those arseholes. Just all they've got to do is pay them, offer everybody in the NHS a 20% pay rise, and then I might just say, okay.
Stuart, I actually think that's a good idea. I think they should paint all the pillar boxes in Scotland blue, so we can run out with white paint and put white crosses on them all.
Aye. Well, I suppose.
I like that idea. Oh yes, I'm going to
do the hard work.
Yeah, no, I think I might have a pot of white paint in the cupboard and a paintbrush ready.
Right. So now that we've established the Tories are still selling off the NHS to their pals, that Dominic Cummings has made sure his buddies from the Brexit days have had a few contracts from the Tory government and are still continuing to collect our data. We have other data from the Office of National Statistics Jimmy, this is your...
Aye. ONS data that was released this morning, which is 2 weeks out of date, right enough. But there we go. They still try to find out a clever way of letting England gently know that 40,000 people have died, no 30. So we've gone up to 32, I think, this morning. But the minute literally the minute the ONS was out, at the same time, the Deputy Chief Medical Officer for England was speaking to the the former Health Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, who's head of the Health and Social Care Committee. And she started, this morning, as I say, we've got the ONS stats. So now we've got ONS stats as well as Public Health England stats. And the Deputy Chief Medical Officer was talking to Jeremy Hunt, and she went on about, we can't compare figures internationally. It's difficult because we all record things slightly differently. So she started talking about figures adjusted per million, deaths per million, adjusted for age and age groups. I'm getting sick and tired of the different amount of stats that we get from different places. Tell us how many people are dead. And if the Scottish Government can tell us how many people are dead up to Sunday, how is it the English Government can't tell us up to Sunday or the Sunday before, but it's to the Thursday prior to that?
Well,
All there is people muddying the waters. It's deliberate obfuscation so that when we get to the end of it all, we might have a number, but by that point, people will be sick of listening to numbers. So they'll be inured to the fact that 40 odd or 50 odd or 60 odd thousand people died.
I think you're right. I think they're trying to keep it as complicated as possible.
And that's deliberate, absolutely deliberate.
To keep it as murky as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And they're hoping by the time that it all gets sorted out, a year from now, 2 years from now, people will be over it.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's like saying, well, there's a squirrel rather than a dead cat slammed on the table? It's more obfuscation than a clear, obvious, diversion.
It's
more like a dead cat slammed on a trampoline, so it keeps bouncing.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I like that one. Being a cat lover, maybe I didn't when I think about it. But you're bang on, mate. And to be honest with you, already the headline should be, right, we've finally managed it. We are the worst country in Europe. We have had most deaths in Europe, but that's not the headline. That's already disappeared because of the way that they're doing these things.
Well, that brings us back to the international press reporting what the British press seem to be totally unable to report.
Aye, well, as I say, Norrie, you've got to actually have a bit of grudging respect for Dominic Cummings. He is a PR man, and the way that his PR's running at the moment is kind of helping the Tories to get away with this. It's looking like they will get to blame scientists. They will get to blame the public for not doing what they asked, and they will get to blame plenty of people. And most of the shit that should stick to them is actually going to bounce off them and stick to other people instead. And that's what Dominic Cummings' job is, isn't it?
Did anybody see the thing? I just caught it. There's some site banging stats up saying that the government, that the UK government, Boris Johnson's government, has the support and trust of 60% of the UK population. Yeah,
that's... I've seen a couple of them, mate, in cyberspace, and let's be honest, it's stats. You can make anything look... If you twist statistics the way that you want, there's no danger he's got 60% support.
Sure.
No, I haven't seen that one, but Jimmy's right. You can make statistics say anything you like. We've got statistics that show that confidence in the Scottish government is 70%. Confidence in the British government is 54%.
That was a company I recognised, though. That was a recognised polling company. I don't know who this crowd are.
What I'd like to see is, I believe that 54% of confidence in the British government was outside Scotland, or a UK-wide one. What I'd like to see is a comparison of the 70% confidence in the Scottish government inside Scotland the poll done in Scotland to see just how much they respect and can have any confidence in the British government, I think it's going down the tube. I suppose we could finish up, if we're going to finish soon, about the wee ginger Doug telling us that even he's thinking about we need a plan B for next year's election for Holyrood, and if the SNP end up with a majority, the world in Scotland will change.
Well, he's talking about a plan for a second independence referendum, isn't he?
I think I like the wee ginger Doug, I genuinely do, but I think plan B for him should be whatever you write, go and cut it in half when you're finished, because my God, he can go on, eh?
He does like his word count.
But before you came on, Jimmy, I was describing it to the Norrie as kind of more like a Keir Starmer article, and I didn't use the term Stuart Campbell, but it was forensically slow.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there definitely seems to be a move to put pressure on the SNP to come up with a plan B. I've always felt even if there is a plan B, it's going to be difficult to publicise, because whatever it is, it's got to be a shock. It's got to come in at a level that the UK government wasn't expecting it, because they'll have prepared for all the obvious things.
Yeah, but look at what we're accepting at the moment. We're accepting a Scottish Affairs Select Committee with more Tories on it than SNP members.
Why do they accept that?
And our esteemed Pete Wishart is perfectly happy with that, because he's got the chairmanship of the committee, and that's what he's been after most of his career. Is something like
for
that.
A while. He's been chairman
But
for a while.
he's happy to accept 40% of people sitting on that committee do not sit at Scottish constituencies.
4 out of the 6 Tories are English as well.
Mm-hmm. It's ludicrous.
Or represent English constituencies is a more accurate way to put it.
I think
it'll be the usual. They'll be able to change the goalposts any way they want.
Well,
the Tories have got more MPs than they've ever had before. Therefore, they can do that. They're lost in Scotland. That's irrelevant.
They've not got more MPs than they've ever had before, though, mate. They've got more MPs than they've had for the last 5 years. They've got nothing like the amount of MPs they had under Maggie Thatcher.
Aye, but what I'm saying is that they'll talk about this Parliament and that committees should represent the size of their majority, blah, 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 blah.
Well, would it not been better for the SNP to say at that point, we'll not take part?
Is there not two Labour? Are there not 2 Labour MPs on it as well?
When Labour have only got...
the question you got to ask at what point, given history, at some point, surely there'll be an uprising.
There'll be what? Sorry, Stuart?
An uprising of the people.
No, there won't be. No, there won't be.
Well, there has been in the past. Why should things change?
An uprising when? Where? You're talking about the 45?
No, I was thinking about 1820, 1897.
That never happened. I didn't get it at school in history, so it could never have happened.
Oh, right.
An Englishman's answer, if I've ever heard one, Stuart.
What about Tommy Sheridan's poll tax uprising? That didn't happen
about
either.
Tommy Sheridan's uprisings, I've spewed a wee bit into my mouth already the minute you start talking about Tommy Sheridan's uprisings. We're not going to Manchester and we're not going to a Knockinshaw.
Oh, come on. Let's not go down that road.
I'm sworn to secrecy on this one. No, I was going to say the Tommy Sheridan thing never happened either because it wasn't on the BBC. So,
you're a right Englishman for a man with a name like Stuart. You certainly sound English, Norman.
Aye, a middle name Alexander as well, mate. That's
for crying out loud! An Alexander and a Stuart, and you're talking like that, man.
Aye.
My father's name was Alexander McCulloch.
Oh, John. Do you know what my maternal grandfather's name was?
What was that?
McCulloch.
Oh God, here we go. And my Granny McCulloch's buried in Tinalt Cemetery. But did they tell me your granny's buried there or not?
No,
Otherwise, it could be incest.
my grandfather's in a watery grave off the coast of Japan.
All right, okay.
Got bombed on a Red Cross ship by the Americans.
Oh dear.
There you
Can
go.
I just point out before we finish, chaps, about another cracking presser for Nicola Sturgeon today? Again, she looked straight down the camera and talked to the public and explained to them pretty straightforward and pretty simply what was going on, what they're looking at being the first steps out, although she clearly stated the first steps out will be in some time. And then one of the dafties for the press pack, who were again trying to drive a wedge between her and get her to comment on what Boris might talk about on Sunday, which is just ludicrous. But I thought that was brilliant when she came up with the example about schools, and we've heard that primary schools might open in England on the 1st of June. And she done the whole, put her hand on her chest, said, hand on heart, I couldn't make that decision for the schools in Scotland because I haven't seen the evidence that it's safe. So she had a bravura performance again today.
I'm waiting for her to actually start one of our podium performances with, now I'm going to make a statement. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. And if any one of you ask a question that I've already answered or told you I can't answer, I'm going to send the SAS round to shoot you in the head. I mean, it was unbelievable. I cannot give you a certain date about. Could you give us a certain date about? Oh,
ludicrous, eh?
No, I've trapped you, First Minister. I'm going to ask you a direct question about this.
That press pack that lines up to ask all these questions, it's been incredibly revealing because these people are normally not visible to us. Up until this crisis, these very same people have been turning up in a secret press briefing. And it's got, well, I do my own shorthand to try and keep up with it. But I have a shorthand for these people that are, and it's H for hyenas. And it would appear that about 90% of these so-called journalists are just hyenas. They are not interested in the truth.
Stuart, they must be hating this, having to appear.
Aye, they're being exposed.
They must be hating because they are the ones that are coming out of it terribly. They are ones that look ridiculous.
One of the reasons the Scottish NHS has made such strides in various areas like infection control is they now have a policy of no blame, which effectively means if somebody makes a mistake, they go to their boss, they say, look, I made this mistake and it happened because. So they then look at the because, not the individual that made the mistake.
Yeah, that's a fabulous way to work.
Right.
It works fantastic.
The reason it will never work in the UK at political level is because the press are only interested in one thing, and that's a blame game.
Yeah.
A gotcha moment. They're not interested in reporting facts or policy. They're just interested in saying, you got it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, apart from the exposure of just how evil the press is, we're getting to see this day by day by day. We also discovered last week that they voted Paul Hutchin as the Journalist of the Year. Now, the committee that chose Paul Hutchin as the Journalist of the Year is chaired by a Conservative politician.
And do you know what he got it for?
These are the same people that voted for Ruth Davidson, Politician of the Year, about 3 out of the last 4 years, for crying out loud.
But do you know why he got it? He got it for his expose of the number of pairs of shoes.
The Lord Provost of Glasgow wore. Am I right?
That's about the level of the Daily Record, and it's about the level of the Scottish Press Pack. Fortunately, most of their papers are dying, and there's some real talent floating about if you want to go looking for it online. There's some fantastic bloggers and journalists out there.
All I was going to say, the point is, it's so blatant now We're now seeing how awful they are, and they didn't. They can't like it. They cannot like how exposed they are.
Well, especially when you look at the numbers, mate. When you look at the SNP sitting at 54% in opinion polls for next year's election, and that they've got. I mean, since 2014, they've had a solid 45. The 45 that voted yes in 2014 have solidly been behind the SNP and behind yes, and yet our press packers that thick, that dim, that none of them have had the common sense to start appealing to almost half of the people of Scotland.
Yeah.
So they're only trying to sell newspapers to the rump that voted no. It's crazy.
It's unbelievable. Right, guys, we've run on quite a bit. I think we'll call it a day at that. A nice reference to rumps there, Jimmy. I think good one to finish on. So thanks, Stuart Lockhead, Jimmy Hutton. I'm Norrie Stewart. And thank you for listening, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll no doubt catch you tomorrow, which is Wednesday. Do we have a PMQs tomorrow?
First Minister questions at 12:30, and I suppose the
FMQs tomorrow.
PMQs, they could run together. They could be overlapping.
Well, we'll watch FMQs just in case Jackson Carlaw.
Get a laugh at Willie Rennie, mate. He's still running about convinced that Nicola Sturgeon's building her own app and she's trying to make money on the side of it or something.
Yeah, he doesn't understand. That was quite funny. That we should have mentioned that. Okay, folks, we'll catch up with you tomorrow. Cheers for now.